most of us are in our late teens or early 20s, we're usually dossing about at university, working in a bar, committing petty crimes, or trying to get our face on a billboard. All of which are perfectly fine vocations, of course, but it's not quite as exciting as being a WWE superstar, is it? They say wrestling is a young man's game, but who are we really kidding? Particularly in recent times, WWE have relied more and more on aging performers as younger talents have struggled to really break through. Typically, a wrestler will peak at some point between his late 20s and mid-30s, but of course, it's different for everyone. Some wrestlers are born into the business and take to it like a duck to water, while others get into the game late and achieve success when time is not exactly on their side. Regardless of how you get into the business, you usually have to wait a while before winning your first title, especially in WWE. However, the following 10 grapplers managed to do it when they were too young to rent a car, or in some cases, celebrate their triumph by consuming alcohol. So grab a pint of fizzy Vimto and feel very, very old with me, because I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic.com, and these are the 10 youngest champions in WWE history. Join us. Number 10, Zack Ryder. Woo, woo, wouldn't you know it? Zack Ryder is the 10th youngest champion in WWE history. It may not be such a surprise, considering Long Island IZ was employed by WWE for the better part of 15 years and is today, at age 35, by no means an old man. Ryder had a couple of notable title runs in his long and, inconsistent, shall we say, WWE career, memorably winning the United States and Intercontinental belts, despite the fact that someone backstage, maybe everyone, clearly had it in for him. Those were feel-good moments that arrived after months, nay years of struggle, but it was his first WWE title win that lands him on this list. Ryder, along with longtime partner Kurt Hawkins, captured the WWE Tag Team titles at the Great American Bash on July 20th, 2008. In doing so, they became the youngest team in history to win the tag titles. Ryder was 23 years, 2 months and 6 days young when they beat champions Miz and Morrison, Jesse and Festus, and Finlay and Hornswoggle in a 4-way match. Hawkins himself only just misses out on this list, as he's just a mere 3.5 weeks older than Big Daddy Z. Number 9, Jeff Hardy. Jeff Hardy wrestled for WWE long before he had rainbow-coloured hair and a Hot Topic credit card. He was so young, in fact, that when he worked enhancement matches in the mid-90s, that he, his brother Matt, and his trainer had to lie to WWE management about his age. The fresh-faced high flyer was doing jobs for the likes of Razor Ramon when he was just 16 years old, though WWE management thought he was actually 18. By the end of the decade, Hardy was a full-time member of the active roster and gaining traction in the tag team division, surprisingly winning the tag team titles from the Acolytes on the July 5th, 1999 episode of Raw. That victory puts Jeff at number 9 on this list, his title win coming with Jeff having spent 21 years, 10 months, and 4 days on this planet. I cannot vouch for time he may or may not have spent on other planets, mind you. I mean, he is a little bit weird. Matt was a good few years older than his baby bro, but the duo was still unusually young to win the titles, especially during the Attitude Era. They lost the belts back to Bradshaw and Farouk a month after winning them, but that brief run gets Jeff a spot in the history books. Number 8, Paige. Considering she debuted at age 13 and worked as a bartender and bouncer when she was only 15, it's hardly surprising that Paige would feature on this list. Paige's first time in a ring actually came when she was still in the womb. Her mother, UK veteran Sweet Saraya, once unknowingly wrestling when she was 7 months pregnant. Bloody hell, I can't even go swimming on a full stomach. Anyway, the Diva of Tomorrow was already a well-travelled veteran by the time she signed a WWE developmental contract in 2011. It wasn't too long after putting pen to paper with the biggest wrestling company in the world that Paige managed to capture championship gold. She won a tournament to become the inaugural NXT Women's Champion in the summer of 2013, only losing it due to vacating it because she had been promoted and won WWE Gold. Well, okay, sparkly purple and silver, while still champ. Making her surprise main roster debut on the post-WrestleMania 30 Raw, Paige quickly beat AJ Lee to become the youngest female to win a WWE title at 21 years, 7 months, and 21 days. And I'm sure she celebrated like most adults would, watching RoboCop with a couple of ice-cold Bacardi breezers. Just me then, or... Number 7, the 1-2-3 Kid. It took a lot to survive, let alone thrive, in the land of giants that was WWE back in the day. Nowadays, it's far from uncommon for WWE stars to measure up the wrong side of 6 feet tall and weigh less than 220 pounds, but for a long time, the taller and thicker the performer was, the more chance they had of getting a push and thus winning titles. 123 Kid, better known to degenerates like you as X-Pac, was another who started young and, after making his name on the indies and in Japan, signed with WWE in 1993, quickly capturing the hearts and minds of fans thanks to a memorable upset victory over Razor Ramon. The Clique member was on a roll, and in early 1994 he won his first WWE Championship, teaming with Marty Jannetty to win the tag titles from the Quebecers on the January 10th episode of Raw, which also happened to be the 1-year anniversary episode of WWE's flagship program. Waltman was 21 years, 5 months and 28 days old when he and the former Rocker pulled off the surprising win. Not so surprising was WWE's decision to put the straps back on Jacques and Pierre 7 days later at a non-televised event. Still, the reign means that Waltman is the oldest, youngest champion in WWE history. Try and Benjamin Button your heads around that one. Number 6, S.A. Rios. While WCW had a red-hot cruiserweight division during the Monday Night Wars full of talented performers like Rey Mysterio, Dean Malenko and Eddie Guerrero, WWE had a lukewarm light heavyweight group that boasted such luminaries as, Scott Putski, Flash Flanagan, and Gilberg. One of the bright spots of the division, which was never seriously pushed or even regularly featured, was Aguilar, who managed to get himself booked for WrestleMania 14 against light heavyweight champion Taka Michinoku. Aguilar was unsuccessful in his quest, but would have more joy a couple of years later. All he had to do was take his mask off, dye his hair bright red, change his name, and partner up with a beautiful woman. Easy enough. The newly dubbed S.A. Rios won the light heavyweight title from Gilberg in his debut on the February 13th, 2000 edition of Sunday Night Heat. He was 21 years and 2 months old when he did so. Sadly, the title win would not lead to a major change in fortunes for either SA or the light heavyweight title. Rios would break up with Lita just a couple of months later when she was put with the Hardys, becoming a major star while her former flame burned out. Number 5, Hornswoggle. After the light heavyweight title was retired in late 2001, WWE began to place more emphasis on the Cruiserweight crown, which had made its way over from WCW during the invasion. A SmackDown exclusive, the Cruiserweight division was one of the main ways the Blue brand distinguished themselves from Raw during the first brand split era between 2002 and 2007. With talented stars like Tajiri, the Hurricane, Chavo Guerrero, Jamie Noble, and Billy Kidman populating the scene, it was always bound to be good. There were missteps along the way, sure, but on the whole, Cruiserweight title matches typically offered something unique. Though it might not compare to WCW's treatment of the belt towards its end, Oklahoma anyone? The decision to put the title on Hornswoggle at the 2007 Great American Bash quite clearly signaled that the belt was perhaps not long for this world of wrestling entertainment. The Leprechaun became the youngest and smallest Cruiserweight champion in history at 21 years, 1 month and 3 days. His reign was also a short one, clocking in at 68 days before it was vacated for good by SmackDown General Manager Vicky Guerrero. Number 4, Kenny Dykstra. If you have a group of young and hungry prospects in your developmental system, there are worse things you can do than bring them all up and make them a stable of male cheerleaders. Well, there aren't many worse things you can do than that, but there are some. Notwithstanding the obviously short shelf life the act were destined to have, the Spirit Squad had themselves one hell of a run in 2006, spending much of the year associated with the McMahons and battling Triple H and Shawn Michaels in main events. When I say battling, it wasn't exactly a battle. What's the opposite of a battle? A massacre? Okay, so they spent a year being massacred by DX in main events. Still though, before they started regularly tasting super kicks and pedigrees, the Spirit Squad somehow managed to win the World Tag Team titles, beating Big Show and Kane on the Raw after WrestleMania 22. All 5 members were recognized as champions under the Freebird rule, but it was Kenny and Mikey who won the match, and more often than not, it was those two who would defend the belts. Quite the responsibility for a man who had celebrated his 20th birthday just 18 days prior. Number 3, Tyler Bate. Based on just how bloody incredible he is at such a young age, I went ahead and assumed that Tyler Bate took his first bumps before he could ride a bike, but no, he started wrestling just a few years before making it to WWE. A sensation on the independent circuit, the smaller half of Mustache Mountain was signed by WWE in late 2016 as one of the entrants into the tournament to crown the first WWE United Kingdom champion. And the Nipper went the distance, beating Pete Dunne in a fantastic finals to become not just UK champion, but also also the youngest singles champion in WWE history. For another year and a bit anyway, more on that soon. The big strong boy actually had the shortest reign with the title, but that's somewhat less unimpressive when you remember that Pete Dunne, the man he dropped it to, held it for 685 days, and maybe you wouldn't bet against Walter eclipsing even that. Bate has since added an NXT UK tag title run to his resume, and not even yet in his mid-20s, it's fair to say that his best days are still ahead of him. And just how friggin' scary is that? Number 2, Rene Dupree. Rene Dupree was the youngest person to ever sign a WWE contract, reporting to Developmental League Ohio Valley Wrestling in late 2002 at the age of 18. With his second-generation lineage and OVW's prior success in training future stars, hopes were high for the French phenom, and it didn't take him all that long to find his way to the main roster. Teaming with Sylvain Grenier as La Resistance, Dupree made an instant impact, and incredibly, the pair won the World Tag Team titles in their third pay-per-view match, beating Rob Van Dam and Kane at Bad Blood 2003. With the victory, Dupree became not only the youngest champion in WWE history, but also the first teenager to ever win a WWE title, something only Bate has managed since. Dupree was just 19 years and 6 months old at the time. What should have really been the start of a long and prosperous WWE career was, sadly, a case of a talented prospect peaking early. Dupree won the tag titles once more in 2004 with Kenzo Suzuki, but his time with the company came to an end just a few unproductive years later. He's still only in his mid-30s, however, so don't write him off just yet. Number 1, Nicholas. Yes, the man who pipped Dupree to the number 1 spot is a 10-year-old child, who was only made a champion because 35 different writers somehow couldn't come up with anything better. While Dupree was bred for success, Nicholas was a punchline, a groan-inducing way to pay off a mystery partner angle at the biggest show of the year. Nicholas, who is actually the son of referee John Cone, was plucked out of the crowd by Braun Strowman to take on the Bar in a WWE Tag Team title match at WrestleMania 34. Naturally, Nicholas didn't give or take a single move, as the monster among men won the match single-handedly. Still, Nicholas is in the history books as the youngest WWE champion ever. And the night after their win on Raw, Strowman and Nicholas relinquished the belts because Nicholas wasn't able to defend them since he had to, and I kid you not, go to school. For all those who complain that WWE with John Cena on top was a product for children, please note that this is the truly evil alternative. And it was a missed opportunity to have a preteen get his head kicked in, if you ask me. Although in saying that, it was revealed after that Nicholas does hold a red belt in karate, meaning he could probably beat about a third of WWE's roster in a shoot.